What's going on, friends? Welcome back to College Sports Corner. It is Thursday. One more day till the weekend. Just gotta get through tomorrow. I know I'm looking for the weekend. Thank God we got one more day. Man, it's hard. Holiday weeks are hard. Have Monday off, so I'm working 4 days straight instead of having my usual Thursday off. So I'll be glad that Friday is tomorrow. Thank God. Um, we're gonna go over this weekend schedule, things that are going on. Uh, no football tonight, no college football because the NFL started. There's an FCS game if you can find it if you're interested. It is UT Martin at Missouri State. I think I saw it was on ESPN Plus, but as far as regular television, no, because the NFL starts. Which I don't know why college bows down to the NFL in the first place. I think if they had a college game on tonight, plenty of people would be watching it. I think the ratings would be good. But what do I know? That's why I'm not in television. Okay, let's go over some news. We got quite a few news items here. LSU defensive tackle Mason Smith will miss the rest of the season. Torn ACL in his left knee. If you saw that game, you remember he was celebrating a play early in the game. Tore his knee up, and it turns out it's an ACL. He'll be out for the rest of the season. That kind of sucks, but I mean, it is what it is, I guess. Hey, some really good news. Wake Forest quarterback Sam Hartman, he's back. He's been cleared to play. Evidently, he has some blood clots. Don't know where they were. Probably in his legs, I would imagine. But doctors have cleared him to play, so he's coming back. And we'll go over the schedule here in a minute, but I think they got Vanderbilt this Saturday. So good news for Sam Hartman. Good news for Wake Forest fans. Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark says they are eyeing possible expansion. Candidates out west. Candidates with national recognition. Didn't mention any names, but I wouldn't be surprised if he was going to talk to Washington, Oregon, Utah, Oregon State, maybe the Arizona schools. I don't know. Looks like the Pac-12 is probably falling apart, which is kind of a shame. I enjoyed those late night Pac-12 games. But times are changing. Things are falling apart. So looks like that conference may be falling apart. But who knows? We'll see. We'll see what happens. Hey, you a fan of Pat McAfee? Fan of Game Day? Well, McAfee is joining Game Day for the rest of the season. So if you're a fan of Pat McAfee, he's going to be on Game Day the rest of the season. I used to really love this show. Never missed it. But last several years, they just got too many cooks in the kitchen on that show. When it was Chris and Lee and Kirk, it was great. And they would go out to the reporters out at different games. Then they had Desmond Howard, which is cool. I like Desmond. But now you got a producer weighing in. You got all these other people weighing in on stuff. And like I said, I really don't enjoy that. Plus the guest pickers they get. Some of these guest pickers don't even know college football exists. So, hey, if you're a fan of Game Day, now you got one more person to watch on that show. Former Kentucky and Baylor coach Guy Morris passed away this week at 71. Cause of death not known. He was diagnosed with Alzheimer's in 2016. One thing I do remember is I think it was 2007 maybe. I think it was 2007. LSU in Kentucky. That game in Kentucky was totally crazy. And if I remember right, he was the coach in that game. If you know anything about that game, go back and read about it or watch highlights on YouTube. But anyway, yeah, former coach Guy Morris passed away at 71. Man, prayers to him and his family and all his old teammates and old coaches. Lost another one. Alabama says tight end Cameron Latu, he will play on Saturday versus Texas. Yeah, undisclosed illness. Don't know what it was. Nick Saban ain't saying. But anyway, he'll be back for the Texas game. Florida State lost starting right tackle Bless Harris for the season. See who's going to replace him, but that sucks for him. LSU safety Joe Facha didn't play Sunday due to some kind of transfer credits. As much as I love college football, Sometimes you just wonder about things that go on. But yeah, he didn't have credits to transfer, so that's why he didn't play. So, and Dabo Sweeney gets a 10-year, $115 million extension on his contract. So Clemson wants to keep Dabo around. I don't blame them. They had a little down year last year. Even though they won 10 games last year, they just didn't look like the Clemson that we've seen the last several years. But, oh well. Clemson believes in him, and I think a lot of other people do too. Okay, speaking of Clemson, let's go over this game real quick on Labor Day night. Clemson 41, Georgia Tech 10. DJ, 19 for 32, 209 yards, touchdown. Also rushed for 28 yards on a touchdown. Shipley rushed for 42 yards on 10 carries and 2 touchdowns. And Collins, 3 catches for 54 yards and a touchdown. Georgia Tech side of the ball, Sims was 23 for 36, 164 yards, touchdown, and he threw an interception. And unfortunately, he was the leading rusher for Georgia Tech with 41 yards. McCollum had 6 catches for 55 yards. Jenkins caught the TD pass. Clemson ended up with 386 total yards. Georgia Tech, 237 total yards. One of the sad stats is they only had 73 rushing yards in this whole game. Going into halftime, this game was 14-3, and very defensive first half. Both offenses looked kind of sluggish. Defense mostly ruled that first half. And when you got to halftime, it felt like it was going to be one of those classic Clemson versus Georgia Tech games that we used to see from the late 90s all the way into the 2000s. Went wire all the way down to the wire. One team won by a few points. Kind of looked like it was going to be that way. I was happy about that. I was like, cool, let's have a game. Especially when Georgia Tech scored in the third quarter, made it 14-10. It was really looking like that. But then Clemson's offense, they woke up, started laying it on Georgia Tech, and that was all there was. Tiger special teams blocked 2 Georgia Tech punts. Each one of those blocked punts led to Clemson touchdowns. If I remember right, it was Shipley who ran those touchdowns in after the blocked punts. Georgia Tech also had a lot of penalties. A lot of false starts, and a targeting call that led to the ejection of Charlie Thomas. So they kind of shot themselves in the foot. But then against Clemson, Georgia Tech fallen off the map a little bit the last few years. So they didn't really match up to Clemson. They did in the first half, and then second half Clemson just turned it on. And anyway, Clemson won that game, as you all know, 41-10. Okay, let's go over some of these. Let's go over the schedule here for this weekend. Tomorrow night, Friday, Louisville at Central Florida. Might be a decent game. Boise State at New Mexico. That's it. You got 2 games. That's all. Okay, Saturday. Here we go. Number 1 Alabama at number 1 Texas, 11 a.m. Not really quite sure why this game isn't prime time. I mean, Fox has it, and I don't think Fox does primetime games, but they should. Because could you imagine, was it Michigan and Michigan State last year, and then Michigan and Ohio State? Can you imagine if one of those would have been the primetime game? So I don't know. Maybe Fox will start doing primetime games. We'll see. But yeah, Alabama and Texas. A lot of people picking Alabama, rightly so. But it'd be amazing or interesting to see what happens. Okay, after that, we got Arkansas State at Ohio State, Southern Miss at Miami. Interesting one here, South Carolina at Arkansas. South Carolina's kind of come on. Arkansas had a little trouble last week with Cincinnati. Didn't win by very much. I'm not saying South Carolina is as good as Cincinnati, but South Carolina is a lot better than they used to be. Game is in Fayetteville, so that's definitely an advantage to Arkansas. That's an early one, too. If you don't feel like watching Alabama and Texas, there you go. South Carolina and Arkansas. We just talked about Wake Forest, Sam Hartman coming back. Yes, they do play Vanderbilt. Going to be a test for Vandy. Vandy's kind of high right now because they're 2-0. We'll see what happens when they run into Wake Forest here on Saturday. Missouri at Kansas State. An old Big 8, Big 12 rivalry. That might be pretty interesting. Ohio at Penn State. North Carolina at Georgia State. A lot of people saying Georgia State might beat North Carolina. Who knows? UTSA at Army. Charleston Southern at North Carolina State. South Alabama at Central Michigan. Southern Utah at Utah. Utah trying to bounce back from that loss there in Florida last Saturday. Lafayette at Temple. Western Michigan at Ball State. Marshall at Notre Dame. Furman at Clemson. Appalachian State at Texas A&M. I hope Texas A&M wins, but Appalachian State's not a pushover. See how they kept coming back on North Carolina last week. And A&M started off sluggish last week like they always do. Finally got it going. Still not high on Haynes King. I still think Max Johnson should be starting, but that's why I'm not a coach being paid millions of dollars. Hey, rematch from last year, Tennessee at Pittsburgh. That was a pretty damn good game last year in Knoxville. Tennessee came close to pulling it off. Is Pittsburgh as good as they were last year? That's the big question. Because we know Tennessee's gotten better. Hendon Hooker's gotten better. That was a 2:30 game, so keep an eye on that one. Washington State at Wisconsin. Pac-12 versus Big Ten. That might be pretty good. Kennesaw State at Cincinnati. Colorado at Air Force. Man, I don't think Colorado can pull that one off. I think Air Force will probably win that one. Memphis at Navy. Maryland at Charlotte. Samford at Georgia. Akron at Michigan State. Houston, trying to avenge their loss last year to Texas Tech, goes to Lubbock. See if they can pull that one off. Remember last week they had trouble with UTSA and really didn't get back into the game until the fourth quarter. And then it took overtime for them to win. So keep an eye on that one. Portland State at Washington. Here's another interesting one. Iowa State at Iowa. If you saw that Iowa game last week, if you're an Iowa fan, you might be embarrassed by it. I like Iowa. I like Kirk Ferentz, but I really think the Hawkeyes got lucky last week, just somehow won. It's going to take more than that against Iowa State. So I think they play. Don't they play for like the Cy-Hawk Trophy or something like that? They play in Iowa City, but Iowa State, they might go home with that trophy. Virginia, Illinois. Illinois trying to come back from that Friday night loss to Indiana. Virginia's got a good quarterback, so Indiana State at Purdue. Wagner at Rutgers. Northern Colorado at Wyoming. Eastern Kentucky at Bowling Green. Norfolk State at James Madison. Middle Tennessee at Colorado State. Alabama State at UCLA. Incarnate Word out of San Antonio at Nevada. Kansas at West Virginia. Can Kansas win again? Can they beat West Virginia in Morgantown? Who knows? I mean, it's a new year. If you don't watch it, keep an eye on the scores to see what happens. Because if Kansas wins, you know they're going to be pretty high about that. Old Dominion, East Carolina. Holy Cross at Buffalo. Robert Morse, Miami of Ohio. Gardner Webb at Coastal Carolina. Southeast Louisiana at Florida Atlantic. Another interesting one, UAB at Liberty. Both pretty good schools. They're playing at Liberty, so keep an eye on that one. Kent State at Oklahoma. Another interesting one. Kentucky at Florida. Saw what happened in Florida last week. Kentucky won too. They got a lot of players suspended. I don't know how long. I haven't heard how long they're going to be out for. But anyway, it's primetime game, 6 p.m. ESPN. Central Arkansas at Ole Miss. Syracuse at UConn. Western Carolina at Georgia Tech. UMass at Toledo. Weber State at Utah State. Alcorn State at Tulane. Lamar at SMU. Howard at South Florida. Northern Illinois at Tulsa. Eastern Michigan at Louisiana. Alabama A&M at Troy. Florida International at Texas State. Stephen F. Austin at Louisiana Tech. That could be an interesting matchup there. Arizona State at Oklahoma State. 6:30 ESPN2. that could turn into an interesting game. I mean, I know a lot of people are down on Herm Edwards. I think he's done an okay job there. I mean, nothing spectacular, but they're better than they were. So you never know. Early in the season, a lot of upsets happen early in the season, so keep an eye on it. I don't really understand this one. ABC primetime game, USC at Stanford. Uh, yeah, USC won big last week, but they were playing Rice. I know Lincoln Riley's their coach. Stanford's been down the last few years. I'm not sure why this is ABC's primetime game, but it is. Nothing against you, Stanford USC fans. I'm just kind of wondering because it seems to me it's probably going to be a blowout by the second quarter, but we'll see. San Jose State at Auburn. LSU plays crosstown rival Southern, trying to bounce back from that embarrassing play on Sunday night. Interesting here. Georgia Southern at Nebraska. A lot of people are saying don't sleep on Georgia Southern. They could come up, bite Nebraska in the ass, and hand them another loss there in Lincoln. Georgia State's not, or Southern's not a bad team. So we've seen how Nebraska's been this year, in the last few years. So that one's 6:30, FS1. Texas Southern at North Texas. McNeese at Rice. Hawaii going to Michigan. It doesn't look to get any better for Hawaii. That's a primetime game on Big Ten Network if you want to watch that. But, Hawaii, the way they've been getting beaten down this year, maybe, just maybe, that's karma paying them back for not putting their games on late at night. Say, all right. You want to make people pay for it? Lose every game. Tarleton at TCU. Idaho at Indiana. And the last few ones here. Boston College at Virginia Tech. ACC matchup. Idaho State at San Diego State. Nichols at Monroe. Louisiana matchup there. Eastern Washington at Oregon. New Mexico State at UTEP. Okay. Who says you need Hawaii for a home game to stay up late to watch college football? We got 3 of them here. Number 10 Baylor at number 25 BYU. That is at 9:15. These are Central Times. So starts pretty late. 2 good teams. Might be a pretty entertaining game to stay up late and watch while you're having, adult beverage. Or Oregon State at Fresno State. CBS Sports Network at 9:30. That could be an interesting game. Mississippi State at Arizona. Arizona's won. Mississippi State has won. Arizona's trying to improve themselves, or Arizona, is trying to improve themselves from where they've been the last few years. Mississippi State's trying to get better. And I love this. 10 p.m. Central Time, FS1. So we got 3 late games there that one of them we know is probably going to be really good, and the other 2 are probably going to be pretty damn good. So, man, you got 3. Get your TV going, get your iPad going, or your tablet, and get your cell phone going. Because, man, you got 3 good ones there late at night. All right, so that's it. Get back to your NFL game if you're watching it, or get back to watching UT Martin at Mizzou State if you're in there. Anyway, we'll be back on Sunday to wrap up these games that are happening tomorrow and Saturday. Like I said, one more day, and we can tell the boss and the work to, Anyway, be safe. Have fun. Hope the day goes by fast for you tomorrow. And we will see you Sunday.